Conscious leadership. I guess that is the topic. At least that is how I understood my role here today, being a servant. So let's just dive in. Now, to give you a framework of what I'm about to talk to you about, before we let me give you some overview before we get into the details. This is what I would like to talk to you about. I'm sure you've all read the extensive quote that is the guidance for my presentation. And of course, I'm going to expand a little bit on Swami's words, because that is the nature. And it's always interesting to see how exactly they make sense, how they put value into our daily lives, and how we can practice them. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about. So by the end of this, I hope you'll feel a little wiser and more conscious in your leadership skills. Now, basically, the whole quote can be summarized in one sentence, and I would call it leading by example. And of course, that makes perfect sense, knowing Swami. So what are we actually talking about? Now, the quote for today is: be good, be serviceable, be useful, be kind, be God-fearing, then the confidence of the people will be all yours. Now, if you take that to heart, it's probably self-contained, and we don't need to expand on that. But it would be interesting to just look at this from different perspectives, talk about different angles, and how that would benefit us in our daily lives, because we don't want this to be a prayer session. We want this to be a leadership module for people to actually gain experience and value and inspiration for their daily lives and their, of course, Sai activities. So I put in this little picture to the right, where Swami says the same thing in different words. And it's always interesting, because if you hear different words uttering the same meaning, sometimes it makes different sense to different people. So I'm doing this throughout the presentation. I'm taking Swami's words, and I'll comment, and I'll put some more of Swami's words to illuminate and expand their meaning. So basically, if you don't walk the walk and talk the talk, then you are deceiving people, probably yourself, but mostly other people. So we all heard the very important maxim of the unity of thought, word, and deed. So this, of course, extends to the leadership idea. And so in the worldly sense, this is what we're talking about. We all know this, but it's always good, and I like this, to go back to the basics, because sometimes we get so wrapped up in all kinds of dealings and whatnot that we lose sight of the basics. And so I put this little visualization there. I like graphics, so bear with me. So basically, what I think this is important is to distinguish the separation between head and heart. If you equate the ego, and we'll come back to that, you're thinking what you think you should do, or how the world should be, and the heart, which is sort of the feeling, the service, the doing. So leading by example would come from the heart, that you actually do and don't just tell people what to do. Now, of course, it's interesting. How do you actually do that? And I found that are a few criteria that actually help to utilize this in your daily life. Leadership, of course, go first. You're the leader. You're the first one on the job, maybe the last one on the job. And you should be an example, meaning your personal values, your personal sadhana, we'll come back to that. But also, it's your job to entice and engage people. And the best way to do that is express a vision or a common goal, something you want them to do, and something you want them to help you and create as a team, some outcome. Now, of course, then you have to encourage others to join this vision, this mission, this process. And it's always good to achieve results. I find that to be very effective in my business days. I was running a sales team with 200 people, and I would never ask of them anything I couldn't do myself. And I'll give you a little, anecdote. When I was in graduate school, and I'm sure you've all experienced, I hope you have all experienced this in one way or another. I was working in a cafe on a lake in my hometown in Hamburg, beautiful place. It would get very busy in the summer on weekends. And the manager would always ask me to work faster, because you had to put out a lot of cappuccinos during the day. And I thought I was doing my best. I couldn't go any faster. So her husband, the owner, a good friend of mine, told me one day to work faster. And I said, how do I work faster? I think I'm going as fast as I can. So he stepped in and showed me a couple of tricks so that I could actually double my output of cappuccinos per hour. And I found that a good example of just being told, do this, and being showed and taught what to do and how to improve. And I think this is something we all need to keep in mind, that just telling people what to do is one thing, but actually showing them how to, first of all, it documents that you care, and also that it is possible. And maybe in your job, you've had meetings where people ask impossible things of you. And when you ask how, they say, well, that's your job to figure it out. That's not very encouraging. That's not very motivating. So being an example and showing people of how they can achieve what you ask them, that is always, I think it's just gold and a motivational standard. Now, the further part is, of course, since we're a Sai organization, the ego, that you always, when you have a conscious leadership, you serve and you remind people that they're not serving you as a team leader, but they're serving a higher purpose, maybe a higher power. Of course, it is Swami, it's the greater goal, it's the Sai mission. So to a certain extent, you surrender your ego, and you also surrender your expectations, your attachments. We'll come back to that in a second. So you have faith in Swami and in the outcome, because eventually, you know, all you can do is do the work, inspire people to follow you, do their work, trust that it will be done by him, it will be rewarded, and that is all you can do for the best part. And you've all heard this probably from Swami at the bottom: faith in God and faith in yourself, because after all, you are the divine, Prema Swarupa. So you should not just sit there, let him do. And there's a great misunderstanding about having Swami as a doer. I've met a lot of devotees over the years that say, well, you know, just let Swami take care of it. I said, yeah, but why would he put you here? So you have to do the work. You can't just sit there and expect him to do it. And there's a great metaphor that I heard from several people in several cultures. And it's interesting because it's sort of the underlying process is you have wheat, flour, sugar, milk, water, whatever in the house, but the dough for the bread will not make itself. You have to go through it. You have to undertake an effort and just, you know, be conscious, do your duty, do your thing, and hopefully it will be rewarded with success. If you don't get off your couch, nothing will ever happen. And that is, of course, important. And also sometimes you face some obstacles. And for those of you who have been around, I celebrated my 25th year with Swami, as it was in Prashanti the past few days. You know, he has a funny sense of humor, and sometimes he put a challenge in front of you, and then another, and you're about to give up, and then finally you pull through. So don't get discouraged. Keep your faith. And also, as a leadership person, it is important to remind people to keep their faith, because they look to you for leadership. If things go wrong, if something goes south, if something breaks, if something, the little challenges, you all know what I'm talking about. It's not to get discouraged. Even if you work for Swami, sometimes things don't work, or they seemingly don't work, and you have to do the same thing over, and you have to pull through, you have to persevere. and you have to keep your faith. He is testing you. He is not here to make your life easy. I can tell you from my personal experience. I'm sure you've had plenty of experiences that, yes, he delivers, and sometimes he, well, makes things interesting. So then, of course, attachment and hatred are the greatest enemies of progress in any work. We're coming back to this ego thing. And I put ego for competition. You know, when you have a team, a lot of people, sometimes they get competitive and they said, I'm winning, I'm right, I am better, I had the idea and you shouldn't listen, you should listen to me. And of course, that doesn't work. It doesn't work in the Sai organization because there's no place for ego in the Sai organization, as Swami has said. And also in your real life, there is no place for ego. And you all know that when you have a family dispute or a workplace dispute or communal dispute, when some person drops into the ego and just wants to be right, the whole thing goes sideways. Because you're into winning, you're into competition, and some people still believe that by winning an argument, you actually change something. But we have this thing called reality, and in reality, logic, the better argument, the wiser comments do not matter. So this is something that Swami wisely tells us not to do. And also on the practical side, like how is this wisdom practical for us today? You know from psychology that this sort of elbowing and egotistical competition diminishes the team spirit, motivation, creativity, and the overall flow and functioning of the team. I'm sure you've experienced this in one way or another in your job. So that is something to keep in mind, that this is all nice and spiritual and it comes from Swami, but it has real life, real day-to-day value and impact, and it will help you in all endeavors in your life. Now, here we go back to the ego, that you know, someone thinking or saying that they're better or that they're saving or that they're doing something. It's just the whole idea of ego and being in the forefront in different words. And of course, being Swami, he then goes on to say that this is a delusion because we are one. So basically, we're just serving each other, you know, in the greater field, if you want to call it that, that there is not really winning if somebody else loses. Because, you know, when the hand gets hurt, the whole body gets hurt. So you can't, in a team and a leadership position, you can't win an argument and expect the whole thing, the process, to go smoothly and the people to work with you and respect you. So that's a nice tenet that also goes back to what they call systemic theory, that groups and teams form a system. Of course, the Sai organization is a system. And if every team member functions and understands him or herself as a part of the team, of the system, then it all runs smoothly, like the, what do you call the cogs on a wheel? Is that the expression? So, and if someone gets out, you know, like a clockwork, if one wheel gets out of sync, the whole clock goes out of sync. So this is something we have to keep in mind, as again, not only in the Sai organization, but also in your daily lives, that we are all together. We are one humanity, one planet. So lots of problems affect us all. So this idea of working for a greater good, for a greater purpose, and not just follow our little egotistical minds and windings is very important. So we have the Atma serving the Atva. We're all the same, all the divine spark. And of course, the idea is to work on the self-transformational part. This is the part about the, just this morning, we had an executive meeting, and Nimish Pandya reminded us that we're not an NGO. We're not just dishing out money or handing out rice to people who are affected by a flood. But the idea is that we do this to transform ourselves, because that's the only thing we can. Yeah. Now here we go to another interesting. This is all part of. I hope you've read this. Otherwise, you can see this. I don't know if we share the slides later, or you can have a recording. So it all comes together in the selfless service. You surrender your ego, and you work for a greater good. And also, and this is sort of the funny part, is you reduce your karma, because if you surrender your actions, your service, your actions, and detach from the fruits of your labor, you're also, and Swami continuously has emphasized this for decades, that if you're not attached to the outcome of your work, then you don't get the splatters, the negative points if something goes wrong. So I think that is something to keep in mind, especially if you believe in karma. That and that is what I find fascinating about Swami, that if you dive into his discourses and his teachings, there are always so many facets, and it's really interesting to like entangle them and see like this is interesting and beneficial to everybody on so many levels, that it is always worth heeding and paying attention. And of course, you've all seen and heard this, that you do your duty and you detach from the fruits of your labor. This is like one of the tenets in the Bhagavad Gita. And the snake about the karma and the harmless, so you don't get trapped in the cycles of karma because you want to have your will and dominate other people. That's probably not a good idea. Now, to put this a little bit more modern, what you reap is what you sow. That's why you lead by example. If you're nice, you inspire people to be nice. If you're angry, you inspire people to be angry. If you tolerate abusive behavior in your team, you diminish the capacity and the performance of your team, and that hurts everybody. Nobody wins. So the end does not justify the means. I think this is very important for us to keep in mind as Sai devotees, that it is not just to get the job done, but to get the job done in the right way, lovingly, adhering to the values and the teaching of Sai, because otherwise there may be some karmic strings attached to it. And this is actually also my personal experience in business. You cannot, it's an illusion to think that you can achieve a good result with bad means. Corruption, whatever, you all have ideas of what bad means could be. So this is something to keep in mind. And again, from the conscious leadership perspective, you are the example, and people will follow you and they will copy your behavior. So you have to be extra careful to install in them, if you will, the confidence of doing the right thing. Because sometimes people say like, oh, just get it done. You've all heard this, just get it done, I don't care. And that doesn't work, because if you're encouraged to cut corners and do funny stuff, eventually it'll come back to you. So I like this little graphic on the right. I don't know if you can see it. I guess the English term would be what goes around comes around. Does that make sense? Is that an expression you all heard? Yeah. Now, and to move a little bit away from Swami's original quote and more into the field of modern day psychology, and why Swami's teachings are wise, and that modern science is sort of slowly in several aspects validating them, is that you should be kind to people, because they will remember how you made them feel. And you've all know this. If you've had a meeting that was unpleasant and somebody got scolded, you will not remember what was said, but you will just remember that somebody was screaming and yelling and, I don't know, throwing stuff or whatever abusive behavior some people put. And that is what will stick. And that will carry through and have a sort of an impact on every subsequent meeting. When you think of somebody and you're like, oh God, I have to see that person, and he's always nasty and he's always in a bad mood and he's always complaining. So watch out for that. And of course, this goes back to Swami saying, love all, serve all, be nice, be kind. And I was just told in Prashanti by somebody from the Indian Seva organization that said, Swami repeatedly said, the person coming in front of you is Swami. So you should treat everybody as Swami. And when they walk away from you, they should feel as if you are Swami. That's a high standard, but I think it's an interesting goal. or a vision. A vision is something, a goal is something you achieve. A vision is something you just strive to, because if you achieve a vision, it's not a vision, it's too small. And of course, it goes back to the love all, serve all, be nice to everybody, be alike to everybody, all these things from Swami you've heard before. But they actually make sense in a leadership position or in a business position, and of course also in a family situation. Now, here's something you didn't expect. Of course, a crucial point as a person in a leadership position is your own behavior. And how do we best affect our own behavior? We do a personal sadhana. Before someone asks, the reason why the man is bigger than the picture of the woman is my lacking graphic skills. There's no, I don't mean anything by it. It just so happened, and I couldn't fix that. But anyway, so personal sadhana, you all know this, and we are talking about more than just singing bhajans, which is a good base, but actually, as Swami recommends, daily meditation, because we have this thing called the mind, and especially nowadays with all the social media and all that, people get so wrapped up in news and whatever, and all the different channels and all information overload and everything, and that affects our brain and diminishes our capacity to think clearly. Because the funny thing about our brain is that we have what's called the frontal lobe. It's behind the forehead, and it's the part of the brain that makes rational and reasonable decisions. It's also part of our personality. It's sort of where the grown-ups live. And all this social media information, the agitation of, I don't know, you name it, some rock star falling off the stage or whatever, tickles your fancy in the morning. All this agitation, this emotional upheaval actually dampens and limits, just neurologically, your ability to think clearly and make good decisions. So again, Swami, in his infinite wisdom, tells us how to overcome what some people call information overload or information age disease or whatever you want to call it, that you have to control the mind and you have to control the senses, because everything you see, hear, and experience has to be processed by your brain. You can't switch off your brain. And this is what is making a lot of people anxious, upset, irrational, emotional, what have you. So the rescue for this, of course, is control your five senses and thereby control your mind and become more calm and rational. So to put this a little more into a scientific context, this is sort of my field, my scope. There's a ton of research on meditation, and basically all the research I've seen confirms that meditation is actually a good thing. It does what the rishis and what Swami tell us that meditation does and how it is beneficial. Of course, the ultimate goal of meditation is to realize God, but there are several steps. And in this day and age, meditation is actually a very useful thing to keep your brain in sync and intact and functioning well, despite all the, sometimes madness or the craziness of the world. So just a reminder, daily meditation is something Swami recommends, and there are actually good reasons, especially if you're in a leading position and you're in the position to calm other people down, because they found that actually if your brain is calm and you're not emotional and you're not an emotional wreck, just by being in the room, you calm other people down. So I don't want to say as a leader in the Sai organization, you have to meditate to calm other people down, but it might work. It might actually be a good idea. And also there's a good health benefit of meditating. Japa, of course, works and chanting works, but to do meditation like the Jyoti meditation or even yoga or breathing, it is something that will help you in your personal stability, in your personal efficiency, and your impact on other people. And you will inspire other people to do the same, because they're like, oh, he's so calm, he's so nice, he's so effective. How do I achieve that? And that is another part of the leading by example. So, very important. Another quote from Swami: willpower, you lose your desires. This is also something you develop through meditation. Discrimination, discernment, which makes you more clear and more efficient and probably more impactful. And that is something that people like. People don't want drama. People want clarity. They want calmness. And just something to keep in mind, that you do have a responsibility to keep yourself in good shape to be a person of leadership. Now, spiritual leadership. I put this in from our dear Swami. Okay, the truth part we don't have to discuss, but the duty, devotion, and discipline I find very interesting, because they actually correspond to findings of modern psychology. We start with the devotion. We've already had this, the consciousness, or the being conscious of a larger field, humanity, the group, the Sai organization, your family, and the greater good, or God, no? Since we're all working for God or with God or in God, or whichever you want to call that, and the common goal. And this is something also that's very interesting, because if you keep mentioning and reorienting people on the common goal, on why they are doing this, that there is a bigger purpose, it's a great way to resolve conflict. If you get them out of their ego mind, saying like, hey, we are not doing this for ourselves, this is not about a personal position, we are creating something that is of value for more people, for the Sai organization, for the planet, whatever, then that helps to get people out of their small-mindedness and get them on board with, I don't want to say the bigger picture, but sort of move above and beyond themselves. So this is something to keep in mind, the devotion part, that, this is not about me, this is about him, this is about us, this is about the future of the planet. Now, of course, the duty is respecting others as manifestations of the divine. For Sai devotees, this should be rather simple, even though you should also treat people who are not in the Sai fold the same way, even though sometimes they make it really difficult. But Swami repeatedly said service to man, humans, sorry, this is not genderized, is service to God. So we have to keep that in mind. And of course, we want to bring out the best in them. That means we want to integrate them, we want to inspire them and help them through their doubts and their personal drama and their clouds and their maybe disunity or disgruntled thoughts they have, so that we get them along, because the more people we have thinking alike and working alongside, the better we can solve the problems. And again, focus on the common goal and the process, not the person. That is something very important. Always keep it with the process. And I didn't put a slide in, but let me just briefly explain. What you want to have is an outcome mindset and not a problem mindset. We don't want this like, who's at fault, who didn't turn up on time, who messed it up, but how can we fix it? Because if you start this blame game, you're never going to get anywhere. People will dislike it, they feel uncomfortable, they will be afraid to admit mistakes or ask for help, and just try to mush along and hide and not be very productive. I'm sure you've known this from your work experience, but of course the Sai organization is not any different. Also here we have accountability, and the best thing you do, and the truth part, is to create a field where people say like, okay, I messed up, I couldn't do this, I need help, and not laugh with them and not put them down in any way. Because if you make it about the person, you're back in the ego. It's like, I'm better than you, you suck, or whatever you say. And we all know this is not helpful. The old paradigm was the carrot and the stick, but the new paradigm is you catch more bees with honey. So to encourage people and look at what they can do is much more efficient and much more effective if you want functioning teams. And also you have to get people involved that they actually work and not just sit back and wait for other people to do the work. And this is something I have seen all over the world. It seems to be a little virus that as soon as people become promoted or elected or selected to a certain office in the Sai organization, they stop working. And they just tell other people, oh, you do this, you do that, and they stop. And of course, that doesn't work. Nimish Pandya said it brilliantly. He said, like, the higher you go in the organization, the more work you have. You know, seva never stops. So if you think that you work hard and you get a promotion or whatever, I mean, no, it's not a promotion, then work more. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. The work with Sai never stops. So, you know, keep that in mind if you get into a different position. As a zone chair, I can tell you I have more work than all the people I'm working with combined, but I love it. And somehow it gives me the strength and the energy to deal with that. So discipline, of course, we've had this personal sadhana. You cannot expect people to fall in line and follow you and serve you and help you if you do not exemplify what you ask of them or inspire them to do what is helping you. Self-audit, very important. Daily meditation. What is self-audit? It's very interesting. Swami says this is very important. The Sanskrit word, I think, is swadhyaya, which is like a retrospection or something. So in the morning or in the evening, you just sit down and say, like, okay, you know, where am I? What do I want to achieve today? What do I want to do? And in the evening, you just sit down. Maybe you keep a journal, like, what have I done? How have I succeeded today? Where should I put some more effort? Where should I put some more work? Did I treat everybody as Swami? Did I lose my temper? Did I throw a book at my dog or whatever it is? And be gentle with yourself and just note it and say, like, okay, that's an area I have to work on. Because self-improvement and self-audit only work if your self-discipline is nice. If your self-discipline becomes rigid, it will not give you a good time, and it will not work. I know we all have this idea about discipline being hard because we think about the military and whatnot, but discipline is actually that you get yourself to do what you want to do. Without discipline, you wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. So discipline is very important. And also in the spiritual path, because just sitting there and saying, oh, Swami is going to take care of me, and I'm going to sing some bhajans, and then I'm going to have some cake, and then everything's going to be fine. Maybe, probably not. So this is something, coming back to the meditation, very useful to observe yourself with others, establish good habits to help you integrate values and spread love and light to other people, because after all, and this is not very difficult, the only person you can control is yourself. The only person you can change is yourself. The rest is up to Swami. So asking him for guidance and transformation is one of the first things I learned many, many years ago. I continuously do that. Sometimes I forget, but he's very gentle, so sometimes he reminds me. So make it a habit to watch yourself and how you interact with others, and don't take things for granted, because self-transformation is the whole point of the Sai organization. Now, finally, this is something that I found very interesting because it's from the real world and it connects to something that we've all seen and heard before. As here's the process again. But they've done a study on, how's my time? Okay. They've done a study on high-performing teams with Google, and they found that these 5 criteria, these 5 factors are very important. If you've seen them before, good. If not, take a note, because it's very important and it's very practical, and it's actually very Sai. If you dig into them, you get into the same thing that Sai has been saying, teaching us, and now Google found out that this is actually making people perform. I'll take a screenshot, whatever. I put the source at the bottom. I didn't make this up, and it's not secret. It's on the net. You just you can Google high-performing teens, Google. And psychological safety, of course, is We treat everybody alike. We don't laugh at people if they disperform or have a stupid idea, because sometimes stupid ideas are really not stupid and really helpful, or trigger someone else to have a good idea. Now, dependability, of course, discipline, we need to work, not just sit around. I don't know if you have this, what Swami said about committees, that they actually have to work and not just come for tea. I love that. So, you know, the work part, of course, comes first. Structure of clarity, of course, we try to do that as much as possible, that we assign work that actually can be qualified and quantified, that people know what to do, and help them if they don't know what to do, because you can't do what you don't know you have to do. It's sort of self-evident, but sometimes, you know, you'll be amazed how many people do not find this self-evident. And then, of course, this is very interesting, and of course, this helps us a great deal in the Sai organization, is the meaning and the purpose of work, so that we're actually doing something meaningful, whether it is Narayana Seva or disaster relief or Balvikas or what, or you name it, that it actually benefits other people and not just us. And they found that this is actually something many people, even if they're not spiritual, if they're not religious, if they're not in the Sai organization, people want in their lives. It's not a paycheck. I mean, maybe in some not so developed countries, they just want to make money to feed their family. But in our scope, in our spheres, people have the luxury of actually wanting to do good, have a meaningful and an impactful work relationship, because doing work that affects nobody, like sorting boxes in the basement nobody sees, of course, is not very rewarding, and it's not encouraging and motivating people. So I find this very interesting, because it puts value on Swami's teachings, and it puts value on Swami's teachings for our day-to-day lives, and of course in the leadership context for the Sai organization. And oh, that's actually it. I'm done. So I hope this made sense to you. I hope you saw and heard something you haven't seen and heard before. I hope I touched your heart and your mind at the same time. And I don't know what the structure is, but maybe we have time for 1 or 2 questions. If not, I say thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to meeting all of you at some point in person in Prashanti or wherever. And thank you for having me. Sayadaw.